Welcome to the Tamworth FC Social, a podcast all about Tamworth Football Club. Graham is away on his holidays this week, so this time I'm joined by Brett and Chris to reflect on the Lambs' defeat away at Eastleigh and to look ahead to a huge run of matches in the remainder of September. So then, Brett, we got a better result against Eastleigh after the 7-0 thrashing away at Barnet. Still a defeat, but at least a sort of little building block, I suppose, to build on now going forward.
Well, wasn't really going to get much worse result-wise from the weekend before, was it? It did fare for the worst with the early goal going in almost. What was it, just after 5 minutes? But I think the improvement was probably more important, and the result were probably not really realistically going to go away to Eastleigh and pick anything up. So I think a reaction was needed. And, a 1-0 loss down there is probably not the end of the world. So I would have took a 1-0 loss. I know I said that we could draw 2-2 last episode, but yeah, a 1-0 loss, I'll take that as long as it's used to build on a bit of a platform going into the rest of September, which we desperately need to start picking up some points and getting some wins behind us.
Something, Chris, I was thinking about earlier, though, another game where Tamworth haven't scored, and I make it, they have only scored in 3 of their 7 National League games so far. Is that something that you're worried about?
I wasn't at the start of the season, but I think it's becoming a bit of a problem now. With every game I've watched us play anyway, we've created chances and good chances, but we've just lacked that ruthlessness in front of goal. And I think that's part of the reason why we've got such a low points haul at the minute. It should be a lot better. But if we can address that, I think we'll be okay because we're playing well. We're creating chances in most of the games. It's just that final ruthless streak. And I think that's what's the differences between this league and the North, really.
Brett, looking ahead now, what would you say is the big sort of takeaway for you in terms of what's worked and what hasn't? Now we've had 7 games.
I think Chris Ray starting up top has probably been much more positive than Dan Crean on his own the first couple of games that we had. I think that's probably ended up being quite positive. I still don't know really why we didn't start with that in the first place, considering he's the one with the experience in this league. I think Luke Fairland, I think he's played really well. And that's been probably a bit of a breath of fresh air, really, because it just shows how strong we can be at the back if we perform well. And probably for me, the area that we need to work on, though, is just what we're actually doing with our attacking players a whole lot. Who are we going with week in, week out on the wings? Still not really sure what Beck-Ray's got to do to get a start. But I think we just need to think about how we're going to be able to get that extra dimension into the play now. We've got some areas I think we should work well, but then there's still some bits that we need to really work on probably.
One thing that we're probably forgetting about is, for whatever reason, I presume that the club haven't really said much about it, but we've had a lot of injuries this season as well.
How big a miss like Matt Curley has been? Because you think he was so important last season, and the Barnet game particularly, a lot of Barnet's attacks went down Tamworth's right-hand side as well. So I wonder if maybe the likes of him come back. Wonder if we will see that formidable defence kind of re-emerge, so to speak. I was thinking as well with games like the defeat at Eastleigh, the defeat against Hartlepool, you don't want Tamworth to become a team that's sort of known as the plucky promoted team who plays well, as comes very close to getting points, but doesn't ultimately do it. I suppose that's the next stage now in the season, isn't it? Really, just Tamworth need to find a way just to get these points on the board when they're in games.
Yeah, I think like you've just said there, I think the right-hand side for us is probably a real problem. I think we looked, like you said, really weak on the right against Barnet, and I don't think we've offered loads going forward in a lot of the other games as well. So we've got to find a way to use both sides of the pitch to our advantage, attacking and defending as well. Because if you can't attack from it, then you're putting pressure on the back line as well from that side. Yeah, I just think a couple of wins will breed some confidence as well, and that'll go a long way. I think that will hopefully, the result against Maidenhead at home, that can really breathe some air into the lungs for the team.
On that note, then, I think if we look ahead to September or the rest of September now as a whole, I think this is potentially like a season-defining month for Tamworth, because August and the Eastleigh game on paper a really, really hard start to the season. And then the rest of September now, the rest of the matches are all against teams in the bottom half, and Maidenhead coming up on Saturday. This is a bit of an early season relegation 6-pointer, if there is such a thing. And I think, I don't know, Chris, about you. I would say this is in must-win territory almost, just to really get a bit of form going again.
I think it's a bit early for that yet. I mean, we've had it in the past where we've had bad starts and things like that, and only picked up towards the second half of the season. But we've had it the opposite way around as well. We've started well and then it's completely tailed off. But yeah, they're massive games, and the home game is going to be absolutely key. I think we're absolutely rock bottom of the away table, the away form table. I had a quick look at that earlier. One goal away, so the away games, as we predicted at the start, they're going to be tough. But like you say, we've just got to find that killer instinct from somewhere. So I think the defence is doing okay, but I don't know what the answer is. But I think we've got to start putting the ball in the net somehow. Someone's going to have to start stepping up and doing it. Otherwise, we're just going to get cut adrift, and it's just only going to get harder from that point.
What would you say, Brett, is a minimum number of wins that is needed from these games? So I'm classing Maidenhead, Braintree, Fylde, and Altrincham in this little run.
I think we need to be looking at least 3 wins in September because, like you said, October then is really hard. November's not much better either. There's not many games in December. Then suddenly we're halfway through the season there, so I think we've got to get maximum points that we can in September. But I mean, we're saying that Maidenhead on paper's an easier game. They're going to be looking at that as well, saying, well, we've got Tamworth on Saturday. We've got a good chance of picking up some points ourselves and trying to get the ball rolling. I was having a look at some of the stuff that the Ebbsfleet fans were saying after Tuesday night, and they are pretty much saying the exact thing that we are. They're saying, oh, we think we've seen enough to think that we're going to be okay in this league. They haven't won at all. They got 2 points. So teams like that are going to be looking at us and saying, well, we've got Tamworth coming up. We can get something out of them. So, and we've just got to watch that we don't become that team where everyone looks forward to playing.
What about you, Chris? How many wins would you sort of say is a minimum requirement from the rest of the month?
It's hard to say, isn't it, without putting like undue pressure on people and things like that. But I think the Maidenhead, I think that's a game you can look at and think fancy 3 points from that. Braintree away, it's a long trip. Any of the away games, I'd settle for a point, to be honest. And then Altrincham, they're not a bad team still. So I think you're looking for a win there. So I think you're looking at 6-7 points. And I think that should hold us thereabouts. But as we know, it's a tough league. If mistakes get punished, you don't take your chances, you get punished. So we've got to do something a little bit different in these games and just get through, I think.
Tamworth didn't play on Tuesday night when most of the division did. And I think largely speaking, a lot of results went Tamworth's way. So it I don't know, it felt like that sort of 7-goal hit that the goal difference took was softened a little bit by Fylde losing 3-0 away at Forest Green. So the league table doesn't look quite as daunting as it did. But then Ebbsfleet have also changed manager, so and they got a draw on Tuesday night as well. So I'm also thinking like, well, are they going to get a little bit of a bounce? And if Brett, you were saying about what the fans are saying, I don't know, just for me, it underlines again, just if you've got games on paper that look potentially favourable or you're playing teams around you, points are just so much more valuable. Do you think, is it still too early, Chris, to be looking at the league table? What's the point in the season when you sort of stop taking it with a pinch of salt?
I don't know, probably around Christmas point, I think, really. A bit different in this league as well, because you can make signings throughout the season. I can't see that happening anytime soon, to be honest. But you've got to be looking ahead and looking over your shoulder, haven't you, I suppose? I think we deserve more points than what we've got. And I think that's the frustrating thing, really. I think we could have been in a better position given the first few home games. I think we should have won against Sutton and Hartlepool, really. I think that's the story of the season so far, really. I think it's just frustration more than anything. But I think we are playing well. If we can get a run of games together and, the guys are still getting used to the league, if we can, like I say, just sort a couple of the issues out that we know we've got, which we expected we'd have, I don't see why we can't pull away a little bit, but we just got to get these results.
Looking at the Maidenhead game specifically then, they lost 3-1 at Rochdale on Tuesday. They've scored 9 goals from their 8 league matches, but then they've also conceded goals as well. So they've conceded 14, which is only one less than Tamworth conceded. But my main takeaway from the highlights I've watched is they play it on the floor quite a lot, but they are very good going forward. Like in the last few matches I watched the highlights for, they create a lot of chances. What about you, Chris? What sort of game are you expecting?
Another tough game, really. I think I'm guessing they're a full-time team as well, so they'll have all week to work on what they want to do. And again, I don't know what's going on with our injuries and players and things like that, so I don't know what the 11 is going to be. So it's going to be a tough game, but I've been more than pleasantly surprised in how we have played at home. I think we've played well in every game, so there's a lot of heart to take in there. So maybe it is the pitch that's helping us a little bit, or don't know, feel more comfortable at home instead of all the long distance travelling and things like that, which is obviously going to take it out of a part time too. Like I said, it's going to be a tough game, but I think if we can get an early goal just to get that bit of confidence back, then I think we've got enough in us to defend to see out the game. And I think that could be quite key, an early goal for us.
Who, Chris, would you like to see start? Are there any changes to the starting 11 you think should be made?
Again, it's hard to say 'cause I just don't know who's injured or not. But I think Fletcher was just finding his feet a little bit before he got injured. So I think we just need that bit of bite in the middle from what I've seen so far this season. I think we're a little bit lightweight at times. No, I don't know really. It's hard to say. I'd like to see Beck-Ray get a start, but I think he's obviously being used to come on and inject a bit of pace and cause some problems. But I don't see room for a lot of changes at the minute. And I don't see how we can make too many changes.
You mentioned Beck-Ray earlier, didn't you, Brett? Would you start him here?
It's hard to say what a lot of those changes were made against Eastleigh. Obviously, there was no Finn. Okafor wasn't on the bench. Carl Williams came into it. Sundari started it right back. These were all on the back of a really, really heavy result. So changes needed to be made. But the probably changes I definitely wouldn't have really probably saw, to be honest. So, and then on the flip side, a 1-0 loss isn't a bad result against Eastleigh. So would it change anything? It's difficult because you want to start building some continuity as well. So possibly not. Possibly would like to maybe see Beck-Ray start. But again, it depends on who we've actually got fit by this point.
So it is time for predictions then. And a reminder, in our mini league, you get 1 point for the correct result and 3 points for the correct scoreline. Last time in the away game at Eastleigh, Brett thought it would be a draw. Graham and I both went for defeats, but neither of us went for a 1-0. So that's 0 points for Brett and a point apiece for Graham and myself. That means I move up to 8 points, Graham moves up to 6, and Brett stays rooted to the bottom on 1. Your optimism, Brett, will be your undoing, I feel, in this predictions league. We will do now predictions for the home game against Maidenhead. And as Chris, you are our special guest, would you like to go first?
Yeah, no pressure then. I'll go for a scrappy 2-1 Tamworth, I think. I've got to be some optimism somewhere, hasn't there? We're playing well at home. I won't be surprised with that.
What about you, Brett? Any advance on 2-1?
I'll go 2-0 because, again, played really well at home against Aldershot. It's a plastic pitch. Obviously, everyone struggles to play on it. And it'll just be really, really good. I think if we can get a clean sheet on Saturday, that will really, really just do us the world of good. And Saturday's the day to start doing it. So 2-0.
I am going to go for 2-1. And I promise, Chris, I'm not just copying you. I think just because Maidenhead have been scoring goals, I just find it quite hard to see Tamworth keeping a clean sheet against them. But I think playing at home will be a big benefit for Tamworth. And I can see them scoring a few goals, maybe kind of, the last few games they haven't scored, have they? So hopefully there'll be a sort of a letting off of steam, so to speak, in front of goal. And Graham, who hasn't joined us in this episode, has gone for 2-0. So a couple of similar results this time round. I was thinking of ending the episode on reasons to be cheerful, if that's a not too corny. Do both of you have reasons to be cheerful ahead of the Maidenhead game?
Yeah, 4 winnable games coming up in September.
What about you, Chris?
Yeah, same. I look forward rather than back. They had a big reaction last week. I was quite impressed with that, even though we lost. We played well last week against Eastleigh. I was a bit concerned that it could spiral into one of those games where you lose 5-0, but they seem to put that to bed straight away. So, let's get behind them and hopefully can have a good month.
We'll leave it there for this episode of the Tamworth FC Social podcast. Thank you for listening. You can follow us on social media at TFC Social Pod. If you enjoy the podcast, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and give this episode a like. It really helps us grow our audience. Until next time, goodbye.